By 8 p.m., Emma Reyes's feet felt like they'd been traded out for bricks. The diner's neon sign buzzed weakly against the Seattle drizzle, turning the windows into a smear of pink and blue. Inside, the smell of fried onions clung to her ponytail and the worn black apron that never seemed to come clean, no matter how many times she washed it in her bathroom sink. Table 6 is still waiting on their burgers, Emma. You planning to serve them next week? Her manager, Carl, didn't bother lowering his voice. I put the ticket in 15 minutes ago, she said, wiping her hands on her apron. I'll check with the kitchen. Carl stepped closer, the order pad dangling from his fingers like a threat. No, you'll apologize for the wait and make sure they don't leave a 1-star review this time. I'm not losing customers because you can't move faster. Heat crawled up her neck. I'm doing the work of 3 people. Maybe if we weren't understaffed. His smile was thin and sharp. You don't like it? There's the door. Plenty of girls waiting to wear that apron. Her eyes stung, but Emma bit back the words she wanted to hurl at him. Rent was due in 4 days. Mom's medication bill sat in her bag like a brick. The door wasn't an option. She grabbed the water pitcher and forced herself toward table 6, past the laughter, the clatter of plates, and the low hum of the TV in the corner. At the far booth, a man in a navy suit watched her with an unreadable expression. He didn't belong here, not with that watch on his wrist and that kind of posture relaxed, but like he owned the room. His tie was loosened, dark hair slightly mussed, jaw shadowed with the start of a beard. He looked like the type who drove cars that never needed gas and had never counted change at a bus stop. Emma ignored him. Sorry for the delay, she told table 6, mustering a practiced smile. Your food's coming right up. Can I get you anything while you wait? Fries on the house. They grumbled, but the promise of free food softened their faces. She turned back toward the counter, only to hear Carl's voice again. Reyes, he barked. You forgot to wipe this mess. Are you blind or just lazy? He was standing by the coffee station, her station, slamming a rag on the metal surface for effect. Heads turned. Emma felt every gaze land on her like a weight. I'm in the middle of too many excuses. Maybe if you weren't chatting up customers. His gaze flicked toward the man in the suit. You'd get things done. I wasn't chatting. I was taking an order, she snapped before she could stop herself. Silence cut through the diner. Carl's eyebrows shot up. Then he smiled that cruel little smile she knew too well. Wow. Attitude and incompetence. Tell you what, Reyes. Go cry about it in the back if you have to, but out here, you do what I say. Her throat closed. For a second, it was years ago again. Her father's suitcase on the doorstep, the landlord's voice yelling, her mom's hand shaking on the eviction notice. Powerless. Small. She couldn't breathe. Emma slammed the pitcher down, water sloshing everywhere. You know what? Fine. You want spotless counters. Wipe them yourself. She tore off her apron, tossed it on the counter, and strode out, shoves of cold air following as the door banged shut behind her. Outside, the drizzle had turned into a steady rain, Seattle's night swallowing her in gray. She walked fast, no idea where she was going, just away. Away from Carl, away from the smell of grease, away from being the girl everyone could push around because she needed the paycheck. Hey, wait. The voice cut through the rain. She kept going. Emma, right? She stopped. He was there, the man in the suit, now under a dark umbrella, rain beating on his shoulders. Up close, he looked annoyingly even more put together, like the weather respected his paycheck. How do you know my name? She asked, arms folding over her chest on instinct. He lifted a shoulder. It's on your name tag. Former name tag, I guess. This is the part where you tell me I overreacted? She said. Or where you tell me there are nicer ways to talk to my boss. His mouth curved, not quite a smile. Actually, this is the part where I buy you coffee before you pass out from rage on the sidewalk. She hesitated. The rain was soaking through her thin sneakers. Her jacket was no match for the wind. I don't take pity drinks from strangers in suits, she said. Good thing it's not pity, he replied. It's curiosity. He nodded toward the corner. There's a coffee shop half a block down. Bright lights, actual chairs, no Carl. You can tell me all the reasons you hate guys who look like me, and I'll try not to take it personally. She studied him, every instinct screaming to say no. Rich people meant broken promises. Deals made over other people's lives. But she was shivering, and angry, and a tiny, exhausted part of her wanted someone, anyone, to listen. One cup, she said finally. I'm not promising to be nice. For what it's worth, he said, opening the umbrella wider so she could step under it. I'm not that nice either. In the cramped warmth of the coffee shop, as she cupped her hands around a paper cup and watched him shrug out of his jacket, Emma thought he looked even more out of place than he had in the diner. Lucas, he said, offering his hand across the table. Lucas Hale. She shook it, her fingers rough against his smooth, warm palm. Emma, she said. You already knew that. Yeah, he replied, eyes holding hers for a beat longer, then felt comfortable. Figured I should introduce myself anyway. Seems like we're about to have a very honest conversation. She didn't know then that this man, this stranger with an expensive watch and rain in his hair, would blow her life apart. All she knew was that for the first time in a long time, someone looked at her like she was more than just the girl behind the counter. And that terrified her almost as much as it thrilled her. Emma didn't go back to the diner. 2 weeks later, she was standing under the cool, white lights of Verve Boutique, smoothing down a rack of dresses that cost more than her monthly grocery bill. The air smelled like fabric softener and expensive perfume instead of grease. Her new manager, Denise, wore heels that clicked like a metronome of disapproval whenever Emma folded something wrong. It's a basic front table, Emma, Denise said that afternoon, arms crossed as she surveyed the display. You're selling a lifestyle, not stacking clearance bins at a warehouse. Emma bit her tongue. I'll redo it. You'll learn, Denise replied. Or you'll find another job. Same threat, nicer wallpaper. At least the customers said, please here. The bell over the door chimed. Emma kept her focus on the folded sweaters, but a familiar voice slid through the air. Excuse me. I'm looking for someone who threatens her boss with a water pitcher. She looked up despite herself. Lucas stood just inside the entrance, hands in his coat pockets, taking in the store with mild amusement. No suit today, just dark jeans, a gray sweater, and a leather jacket that still somehow screamed money. You're not supposed to be here, she said, heart doing a stupid little jump. Pretty sure this is a public business, he replied. Unless you've bought it since our last coffee. Denise appeared at Emma's shoulder, like she'd been summoned by the scent of wealth. Welcome to Verve, she said, turning her brightest smile on Lucas. If you need anything. I'm good, he said, eyes never leaving Emma. I already know who I want to help me. Denise's smile tightened. Of course. Emma will take care of you. As soon as Denise walked away, Emma hissed, You can't just hijack my manager like that. Lucas raised his hands. I'm here to buy a shirt, not your soul. You don't need to buy either. He watched her for a moment, the playfulness in his expression softening. You didn't answer my texts. Her stomach twisted. I was busy.
New job.
New schedule. And no time to say, hey, I'm alive and don't hate you. I don't, she exhaled. I don't hate you. Progress, he murmured. Can we maybe keep going in that direction? Emma reached for a shirt on the wall, just to have something to do with her hands. You live in a different world, Lucas. You can disappear into your car and your penthouse and never think about how much a bus pass costs. He leaned against the rack, voice low. You think I don't think about money? My family's entire life is money. Spreadsheets, deals, property lines. I know exactly how heavy it is. I just carry it differently. Yeah, with better shoes, she muttered. His laugh was quick, genuine, and it pulled a reluctant smile from her before she caught it. There it was again, that awful, dangerous ease between them. How fast he slipped past her defenses. How easily she wanted to lean on him, just for a second. I'm not a charity case, she said quietly, staring at the shirt in her hands. I don't want to be your project. He sobered. You're not. Like talking to you. That's it. No agenda, no rescue mission. She didn't fully believe him, but she wanted to.
Fine, she said.
Help me sell a lifestyle. What kind of shirt does a rich guy buy when he's pretending to be normal? He grinned. Oh, I've been training for this role my whole life. As she walked him through the racks, explaining fits and fabrics, Emma realized she'd started to anticipate his jokes, to read the tiny shifts in his expression. The more time they spent together, the less he felt like a stranger, and the more terrifying it became. Because somewhere between the diner and the boutique, she had begun to depend on the way he looked at her, like she was worth more than tips and minimum wage. And depending on anyone, especially someone like him, was something she knew she absolutely could not afford. By the time the leaves along Pike Street started to yellow, Emma knew a few things for certain. Lucas Hale never texted with proper punctuation. He always remembered how she took her coffee, and his last name belonged to a line of people whose portraits hung in the lobbies of buildings she could never afford to walk into. The night after their second coffee, curiosity had chewed through her resolve. She'd typed his name into her cracked phone screen on the bus ride home. Hale Holdings, a legacy of American real estate. Victor Hale and Son, Lucas, expand retail empire. Photo after photo, Lucas in suits, at ribbon cuttings, shaking hands with mayors and CEOs, his smile polished and professional. Beside him, his father, a taller, older version, eyes colder, jaw set like stone. She'd nearly dropped the phone. Of course he was that kind of rich. For weeks, she told herself it didn't matter. She saw him in jeans and sneakers at Verve, not on financial magazine covers. He listened to her talk about double shifts, about her mom's prescriptions, and the landlord who pretended not to hear her when she asked about fixing the heater. He let her laugh at his cluelessness about bus schedules and thrift stores. And somehow, in the spaces between all that, something fragile and real had grown. So when he leaned on the boutique counter one slow Tuesday and said, too casually, "My dad wants to meet you," it felt like the floor under her shifted. "Meet me?" she echoed, fingers tightening around the price gun. Lucas shoved his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
Dinner. Nothing formal.
He heard about you.
Her chest went tight. He Googled me or something. Emma Reyes, owner of 0 assets and 14 pairs of socks. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, she said. He knows I'm not from your world. I'm not asking you to impress him. Lucas said quietly. Just be you. That's he stopped, swallowed. That's who I want him to see. It was the way he said it, like he'd already made a decision and was waiting for her to catch up, that undid her. Fine, she said, hearing the tremor in her own voice. But if he asks for my credit score, I'm leaving. He smiled, but his eyes stayed troubled. The Hale penthouse sat in a glass tower that looked like it had been dropped from another planet. Emma's reflection wavered in the elevator's mirrored walls. Simple black dress from the clearance rack, borrowed heels from a coworker, hair twisted up with the one nice clip she owned. When the elevator door slid open, the first thing she saw was the city stretched out in lights beneath floor-to-ceiling windows. The second was Victor Hale. He stood by a long dining table, a tumbler of amber liquid in hand. His suit was dark, immaculate. Up close, the resemblance to Lucas was undeniable, same bone structure. But where Lucas's eyes softened when he smiled, Victor's seemed to calculate. Dad, Lucas said, touching the small of her back. This is Emma. Victor's gaze swept over her, taking in every detail with the efficiency of someone used to appraising property. Ms. Reyes, he said. Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me, she replied, forcing her voice not to shake. Dinner was a blur of porcelain plates and questions that sounded polite, but landed like probes. So, Emma, Victor said at one point, dabbing his mouth with a linen napkin, Lucas tells me you work in retail. At a clothing shop, yes, she said. Verve Boutique. A sales position, he said, as if filing it away. Any plans beyond that? I'm still figuring that out, she said. Right now I'm just trying to keep up with rent. Lucas shot his father a look, but Victor only smiled. Honesty is admirable, he said. In my experience, ambition matters more. The rest of the meal followed the same pattern. Every time Emma tried to relax, another question would hit about her family, her education, her goals. No outright insults, just tiny cuts. By the time dessert arrived, her shoulders ached from tension. Lucas noticed. His hand found her knee under the table, a small, steady pressure. After coffee, Lucas's phone buzzed. He checked it and grimaced. It's about tomorrow's board meeting, he said. I'll take this in the office. I'll be 2 minutes, I swear. Emma watched him disappear down the hallway, then turned back to find Victor watching her over the rim of his glass. The room felt colder. Walk with me, Ms. Reyes, he said, setting the tumbler down. Alarm prickled under her skin, but she nodded. He led her down a short hallway into a private study, dark wood, leather chairs, shelves lined with books that smelled more like money than paper. He closed the door. Emma's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Lucas is impressionable, Victor began, moving behind the large desk. He's spent his life in a protected bubble. People don't tell him no very often. I've noticed, she said before she could stop herself. The ghost of a smile touched his mouth. You stand up to him. That's interesting. But my interest has limits. He opened a drawer and placed a black leather case on the desk between them. It was the size of a carry-on bag, with gleaming metal locks. I built what we have from nothing, he said. I've seen what happens when people attach themselves to my family for the wrong reasons. I won't let that happen to my son.
Her throat went dry.
If you're about to tell me I'm not good enough for him, you could just say it. Oh, I think you already know that, Victor replied calmly. But I'm less interested in your feelings and more interested in your price. He flipped the latches and opened the case. Emma's breath left her. Stacks of banded bills sat inside, filling the space in neat rows.
Dozens of them.
The smell of fresh paper and ink rose up, heady and unreal. "This is $10 million," Victor said, like he was offering her a cup of sugar.
Cash.
Untaxed. Untraced. She stared, her mind snagged on meaningless details, the crispness of the bills, the subtle green sheen, the way her reflection trembled faintly in the polished metal edge. "I don't understand," she whispered. "It's quite simple," he said. "You take this case. You disappear from my son's life. No explanation, no goodbye. You get a fresh start. He gets to think you moved on. Everyone wins." The words slammed into her one by one. "You're bribing me to break up with your son. I am providing you with an opportunity many in your position dream about," he corrected. "Financial freedom. Your mother taken care of. No more double shifts or cruel managers. All in exchange for walking away from a relationship that, let's be honest, is doomed by the imbalance between you." Anger flared, bright and hot. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough," Victor said. "And I know men like my son fall in love with hardship the way they fall in love with exotic vacations. It's exciting until it's inconvenient. Then they go home." Vision swimming, she looked at the money again. 10 million. The number was so big it didn't feel real. It was medication and a safe apartment for her mom, and nights without counting pennies at a gas station register. It was freedom from landlords and Carl and Denise and every person who dangled a paycheck over her like a leash. All for the cost of one man. "You're disgusting," she said, but it came out thin even to her own ears. Victor shrugged. "I'm honest. Which is more than I can say for most people who sit in that chair. Take it or don't. But if you stay with Lucas, the reality will grind you both down. Money has a way of doing that. Better to end it cleanly now." Her hands curled into fists. She imagined telling him no, pushing the case back across the desk, storming out to find Lucas and tell him everything. She also imagined her mother coughing in their cramped kitchen, the overdue notices on the table, the landlord's folded arms. "Does he know?" she asked, voice shaking. "Lucas, does he know you're doing this?" "No," Victor said. "And he never will. Unless you tell him. In which case, the offer is withdrawn, and this conversation becomes very unpleasant for you. So those were the rules." Emma stared at the money until her eyes burned. Every second dragged, weighted with years of sacrifice and humiliation. The part of her that still believed in love screamed to walk away. The part that had watched her father choose a bet over his family whispered that this was her chance to end that story differently. Slowly, like someone else was moving her body, she reached out and closed the case. It clicked shut with a soft, final sound. When she looked up, Victor's expression didn't gloat. It was just resigned. "I knew you were practical," he said. "Have a car drop you wherever you like." She picked up the handle. The case was heavier than she'd expected. As she walked back through the silent hallway, past the glittering view of the city and the echo of her own footsteps, Emma felt a cold, nauseous hollow open up inside her. She had just put a price on her own heart. And for the first time in a long time, she had absolutely no idea who she was anymore. For the first week, Emma pretended the case under her bed didn't exist. She shoved it there the night she left the penthouse, hands shaking so hard she could barely slide it across the floor. Then she took a shower hot enough to burn and crawled into bed fully clothed, her phone buzzing again and again on the nightstand. "Lucas, you okay? Lucas. Did my dad say something? Lucas. Emma, please call me." She turned the screen face down and told herself she'd answer in the morning. She didn't. By day 3, the landlord slid a bright orange notice under her door. Final warning. She stared at the amount due, the late fees, the words legal action, and thought of the case under the bed like it was a wild animal she was trying to pretend wasn't in the apartment. On day 4, she opened it. The money looked the same as it had in Victor's office. Neat, polite, impossible. She sat cross-legged on the floor and just stared, tears burning behind her eyes. "You're buying my silence," she whispered to no one. "My absence." But the numbers were louder. She took a single stack, then another. She paid the landlord 3 months in advance, ignoring his baffled blink, and felt something unclench in her chest. She called the pharmacy, renewed all her mom's prescriptions at once. She ordered a new coat online, the kind that didn't have a broken zipper or missing buttons. She told herself it was practical, responsible. She'd grown up watching money destroy her family. Wasn't her job now to make sure it couldn't do that again? When she visited her mom that weekend, the older woman's eyes filled as Emma set the paper bag of medications on the table. "Sweetheart, this is too much," her mom said, fingers trembling. "How did you?" "I got a better job," Emma lied smoothly, hating how easy it was. "Better pay. Just let me help." Her mom searched her face for a long time, then nodded, worry lines softening. "I always knew you'd find a way out," she said. "You're stronger than I ever was." The words lodged in Emma's throat like glass. The apartment changed next. She swapped the sagging mattress for a real bed, the thrift store couch for something that didn't smell like old fries. She bought groceries without counting every cent and splurged on stupid things: fresh flowers for the chipped vase, a soft throw blanket in a color she liked just because. She told herself she was testing the world she'd always wondered about.
Just for a while.
Just to see what it felt like when your wallet wasn't a constant threat. On her days off, she walked through neighborhoods she used to hurry past. Coffee shops where people worked on laptops instead of eating their only meal of the day. Stores with glass fronts and minimalist displays where nobody watched the price tags like a bomb about to go off. Sometimes she almost relaxed, almost believed this life fit. Then she'd see a headline on a muted TV in a bar: "Hale Holdings announces new development." There he'd be in the footage, Lucas in a suit, shaking hands, smiling that practiced smile she'd never seen in person. She started turning TVs off wherever she went. His name lit her phone for weeks. Lucas. "Emma, I don't understand." Lucas. "If I did something, tell me." "Lucas, please.
Just talk to me."
She typed replies sometimes, half-formed explanations, messy confessions, but never hit send. How did you write, "Your father bought me like a property I was going to lose anyway"? Eventually, the messages slowed. Then one day they stopped. The silence should have been a relief. Instead, it lay over her like a heavy blanket she couldn't crawl out from under. 2 months after she took the case, Emma woke up before dawn, heart pounding. She dreamt she was back at the diner, Carl shouting, the smell of burnt coffee thick in the air. But when she looked down, she was holding the black case, and every time she tried to set it down, it stuck to her hands. She sat up in bed, sweat cooling on her skin, and stared at the rectangle of shadow under the frame. The flowers on the windowsill had wilted. She'd forgotten to replace them. She swung her legs over the side, dropped to her knees, and dragged the case out. Her fingers hesitated on the latches, then snapped them open. The stacks inside were shorter now, less full. She'd been careful, but you couldn't spend without leaving wounds. She ran her hand over the bills, then snatched it back like she'd been burned. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "What did you trade for this?" She saw herself in Victor's office again, heard his calm voice. Better to end it cleanly now. She saw Lucas in the coffee shop, grinning over his crooked latte art, eyes warm when he'd said, "I like talking to you." No agenda. One of those things had been real. The other had felt like survival. Which one had she chosen? Emma shoved the stacks into a smaller bag, leaving aside what she'd already spent, what she couldn't unspend. The rent, the meds, the bed. The coat she wore every day, warm and traitorous on her shoulders. She pulled on jeans and that same coat, grabbed the bag, and headed out into the cold. Victor Hale did not open his own doors. The security guard at the lobby of Hale Holdings looked at her like she'd lost her mind when she said, "I'm here to see Mr. Hale." "Do you have an appointment?" he asked, eyeing her worn boots, the cheap purse.
"No," she said.
"But tell him Emma Reyes is here. He'll want to see me." The guard made a call, listened, then hung up, expression altered by something like surprise. "You can go up," he said. "Top floor." The elevator ride felt like ascending into a different atmosphere. When the doors opened, it was onto a reception area so sleek it almost hurt to look at. The receptionist, all sharp eyeliner and sharper suit, gave her a cool once-over. "Mr. Hale is expecting you," she said, gesturing to a set of glass doors. Victor's office was larger than her entire apartment. The windows showed the city from a height that made everything below look small and unreal. He stood with his back to her, hands clasped behind him, staring out at the skyline. "Ms. Reyes," he said without turning, "to what do I owe this unexpected encore?" She set the bag down on his desk with more force than necessary. The sound echoed in the polished room. "You can have it back," she said. He glanced at the bag, brows lifting. "All of it." "Most," she admitted, chin lifting. "I used some. For rent. For my mom. I'm not going to apologize for that." "I wouldn't ask you to," he said. The answer threw her. She'd braced for contempt, not indifference. "You were right," she said bitterly. "Money changes things. It changed me. I thought I could live with it. I can't." He walked to the desk, fingers resting lightly on the edge of the bag, but not opening it.
"Sit," he said.
"I'd rather stand," she replied. "Suit yourself." He studied her, taking in the dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders. "Most people in your position don't come back at all. They disappear to beaches and bigger apartments and never look behind them. I did disappear," she said. "That's the problem. And now I can't look at myself without hearing your voice," she snapped. "Without thinking about how fast I took that case. How fast I chose safety over him." Something flickered in his expression. Interest, maybe. A crack in the granite. "You still care about Lucas," he observed. She laughed once, harsh. "You know, for a smart man, you ask obvious questions." "Caring and being good for him are not the same thing," Victor said. "You made a decision based on your reality. That's understandable." "Understandable?" She stared at him. "You bought me off. You treated me like a problem to solve. And I let you. There's nothing understandable about that." "There is if you've watched as many people fail the same test," he said quietly. She blinked. "Excuse me?" He opened the bag, flipped through the stacks with a practiced motion. "Most don't return a single dollar. Some attempt to negotiate for more. You are the first in a long time to come back with anything resembling contrition." This was a test. Her voice rose. "On what, my price?" "On your priorities," he said. Lucas is reckless with his heart. I am not. I needed to see what mattered to you when the stakes were high. Let me guess, she said, throat tight. I failed. He looked up, met her gaze. For the first time, she saw something human there. Tired, worn at the edges. On the contrary, he said, you passed inconsistently. She almost laughed. That's not a thing. It is, he replied. You took the money, selfish. You spent it on your mother and basic survival, understandable. You came back with what you could, unprompted, unexpected. You still walked away from my son. Her hands shook. Because you gave me no other choice. There is always a choice, he said. I wanted to see which one you would make first. She wanted to scream at him. Instead, she swallowed hard and forced the words out. Are you going to tell Lucas? She asked. About any of this? No, Victor said. Not yet. The not yet made her stomach drop. What does that mean? It means, he said slowly, that $10 million bought me more than your departure. It bought me a clearer picture of who you are. I'm not finished drawing it. He closed the bag and pushed it aside. You've proved you can't be bought entirely. Now I want to know what you do when no one is holding a suitcase over your head. Her anger drained, leaving only exhaustion. What are you talking about? You said you have a job at a clothing shop, he said. Stay there.
Work.
Live your life. I'll be watching. The words chilled her. Like spying? Like observing, he said, with the faintest hint of amusement. You may consider this the second phase of your evaluation. I didn't agree to any evaluation, she snapped. You did when you took that case, he replied. You stepped into my world the moment you left with it. This is how I protect what's mine. Your son is not a company asset, she said. No, Victor agreed. He's more valuable than all of them. That's why I'm still listening to you instead of having you escorted out. Silence stretched between them. Emma's pulse pounded in her ears. Go back to your life, Ms. Reyes, Victor said finally. Keep your coat.
Keep your bed.
Consider the difference between comfort and integrity. I want to see which one you choose when no one is forcing your hand. She swallowed. And if I choose wrong, she asked. His smile was thin. Then you'll never see my son again. She wanted to tell him it didn't matter, that she'd already lost Lucas the night she took the money. But when she turned and walked out of that gleaming office, the truth settled over her shoulders heavier than the coat. She had one thing Victor Hale didn't expect from her.
Time.
Time to decide who she was going to be when nobody was watching. Time to prove to herself, if no one else, that she was more than the girl who put a price on her own heart. She just didn't know yet that Victor Hale had no intention of merely watching. He was already setting the next test in motion. Verve felt different after her visit to Hale Holdings. Nothing had changed, technically. The same pale wood floors. The same curated playlists. The same wall of mirrors that made customers adjust their posture and their expectations. But Emma walked through it like someone carrying an invisible weight. Every time the door chimed, she imagined Victor Hale on the other side, arms folded, eyes sharp. I'll be watching, he'd said. Maybe he already was. She threw herself into the job like it was the only thing still under her control. She refolded displays Denise barely glanced at. She stayed late to steam wrinkled stock. She bit back every sarcastic comment that rose to her lips. If she couldn't undo the money she'd taken, she could at least decide who she was now. Smile more, Denise said one afternoon, breezing past with a clipboard. People buy more from happy faces. Emma's mouth twitched. I'll staple it in place. Very funny, Denise said without turning. Just do it.
The bell chimed.
3 guys in hoodies walked in, talking loudly, the kind of volume that said they weren't used to being told to quiet down. They looked wrong in the space. Not because of what they wore, but because of how they moved, too casual, like they weren't sure if they were supposed to be here or if they were pretending they were. Emma straightened, forcing the customer's smile she'd practiced over months. Hi, welcome to Verve. Let me know if you need. We're good, one of them said, already reaching for a stack of shirts. He flipped through them carelessly, half the pile sliding to the floor. Hey, man, check this out, another called, tugging a sweater partially off its hanger and leaving it that way. Emma's jaw tightened. Just try to leave things where you found them, okay? She said, kneeling to gather the fallen shirts. Oh, we will, the first guy said. Eventually, they trailed through the store like a storm, tugging clothes out, asking her the same question 3 times, interrupting her answers, making her go back and forth to the fitting rooms with armfuls they never tried on. Emma could feel Denise's gaze from the register, waiting for her to lose it.
She wanted to.
She wanted to snap, to ask them if they'd ever worked a day on their feet, to tell them she wasn't their personal maid. Instead, she took a breath, counted the length of it, and said, If you don't like that fit, we have something similar over here. Might work better. Her voice stayed even. Her hands stayed steady, even when they knocked over a display she'd spent an hour arranging, laughing as a striped shirt slid across the floor. Sorry, one of them said. Absolutely not sorry. Gravity, you know? It's wild, she said, bending to pick it up. Gets us all. By the time they finally left, buying a single t-shirt between the 3 of them, the store looked like a bomb had gone off. Emma's back ached, but she kept moving, refolding, rehanging. Denise came over with a thin smile. You didn't raise your voice once, she said. Impressive. You mean I didn't scare away paying customers, Emma corrected. Same thing, Denise said. Fix the front table before the after-work crowd hits. Emma almost laughed. If this was her life now, being tested by people with more power than her, always, she would at least choose how she reacted. The second test came 3 days later. It was slow, the lull between lunch shoppers and the evening rush. Emma was in the stockroom, scanning new inventory, when Denise poked her head in. Did you sign out those 3 dresses for a customer earlier? She asked. What dresses? Emma said. The floral ones from the middle rack, Denise said. They're not on the floor. They're not in the fitting rooms. The system says we're short. A cold prickle ran up Emma's spine. I didn't ring any florals today. They checked everywhere. Nothing. Denise's mouth tightened. If we're missing merchandise, it comes out of someone's paycheck, she said. And it's not going to be mine. They pulled the security footage. The camera view showed the sales floor from above, a soft fisheye distortion over the familiar racks. There, Denise said suddenly, pointing. Emma leaned closer. One of the newer part-timers, a skinny guy with nervous hands and a buzz cut, stood near the floral rack. He glanced around, then slipped 3 dresses over his arm under his jacket and walked toward the back hallway, right toward the employee lockers. Seriously? Denise muttered. I knew something was off with him. A minute later, he reappeared on camera, jacket bulkier, expression flat. Then he went back to folding jeans like nothing had happened. Emma's stomach turned. She'd chatted with him on breaks, listened to him talk about trying to cover rent for his sister's place after their mom left. She'd believed him. Maybe that was the stupid part. I'll call him in, Denise said, already reaching for the phone. This is theft. We press charges. Make an example. Wait, Emma said. He came into the office looking like he already knew. His eyes flicked from Denise to Emma to the monitor, where the frozen image of his crime waited. Evan, Denise said, faux sympathy in her voice. Is there anything you want to tell us? He swallowed.
No.
She hit play. The footage rolled. His shoulders slumped like something inside had broken.
Look, he said.
I know how it looks, but it looks like you stole from us, Denise snapped. Security will be here in 5 minutes. Please, he said, turning desperately to Emma like she was a lifeline. I didn't sell them. I was going to bring them back after the weekend, I swear. My sisters, they're 14 and 16. Their birthdays are the same week. I couldn't afford anything. His voice cracked. I just wanted them to have something nice that actually fit. Emma's chest tightened. She saw flashes of her own past, a second-hand dress that smelled like someone else's perfume, her mom apologizing because she couldn't buy the one Emma really wanted, the cold taste of wanting and pretending you didn't. Couldn't you ask for an advance? Denise said. We're not a charity. You don't get to just take. An advance, he repeated, almost laughing. On what? $10 an hour? Emma could hear her heartbeat in her ears. He'd made a stupid choice. He'd stolen. The company had rules. Protect the merchandise. Protect the brand. But behind all of that was a kid trying to give his sisters one good day. Denise, Emma said slowly, what if we don't call security? Denise stared at her. Excuse me? What if we write them up as damaged stock? Emma said, words coming faster now that they'd started. And I cover the cost. He brings them back after the weekend. We sell them at a discount, and he pays me back as he can. That's not how this works, Denise said. He broke policy. I know, Emma said, but he's not a serial thief. He's a desperate kid who screwed up. There's a difference. She opened her wallet before she could talk herself out of it. The Numbers app on her phone had been clear that morning. She was tight this month. Really tight. But the idea of watching Evan get walked out in handcuffs made her feel sicker than the thought of another week of ramen. How much are the dresses? She asked. Denise sputtered. Emma, this is insane. How much? Emma repeated. Denise named a number that made Emma wince. She counted out bills anyway, her fingers clumsy, and set them on the desk. There, she said. Consider it paid. Evan stared at the money like it was magic. Why would you do that? He whispered. Because someone once gave me enough money to disappear, and I almost did, she thought. Because I know what it's like to feel like nobody is on your side. Out loud, she said, because I know what it feels like to want something for someone you love and have the world tell you it's too expensive. You'll pay me back, she added. Eventually. In actual money or in covering my shifts or whatever. But you don't steal from this place again. Ever. You get me? He nodded so fast she thought his head might come off. His eyes shone. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I swear. Thank you. Denise looked between them, exasperation and reluctant respect warring on her face. This is wildly unprofessional, she muttered. But fine. We'll document it. One time. She jabbed a finger at Evan. Next time, I won't have a saint bailing you out. Get back on the floor. He left, shoulders still hunched, but not broken. When the door closed, Denise turned to Emma. You're out $300, she said. You can't afford that. I couldn't afford a lot of things, Emma said quietly. But I sleep in a real bed now. I have food. I'll figure it out. Denise studied her for a moment, something softer than annoyance in her gaze. "You're weird," she said finally. "Go fix the front display." Emma almost smiled. Weird was better than bought. Across town, in a private office lined with screens, Victor Hale watched the security footage again. The rude customers testing her temper, the trembling kid, and the stolen dresses. The way Emma's jaw tightened before she pulled out her wallet. "She paid for the loss herself," the head of security said, standing behind him. "You want me to flag him anyway?" Victor shook his head, eyes still on the paused frame of Emma handing over her own money. "No," he said. "Let it stand." He zoomed in, studying her expression.
Not saintly.
Not performative. Just tired.
Determined.
As if she were arguing with herself and choosing the harder side. "Interesting," he murmured. "Sir?" the security chief asked. Victor leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Set up the next phase," he said. "She's passed the moral quizzes. Now I want to see what she does with actual power." Emma knew something was off the second she walked into Verve and saw Denise standing up straighter than usual. No clipboard. No eye roll. Just tight lipstick and a strange, nervous brightness in her eyes. "Good you're here," Denise said. "Corporate's coming." Emma blinked. "Corporate, what did we do?" "Nothing." Denise smoothed her blazer like she was trying to iron herself. "Store's been sold. New ownership. They want to meet the staff."
Sold.
The word landed in Emma's stomach like a stone. To who? Why this store? Why today? She didn't have time to ask. The bell over the door chimed, and the whole room shifted. A man in a dark suit stepped in, flanked by a woman with a tablet. The woman moved first, smiling on autopilot, but Emma's focus tunneled past her. Lucas. He looked different. Same sharp jaw, same dark hair, but the easy warmth she remembered had been tamped down, replaced by something tighter. Tired around the eyes. Shoulders set like he'd been bracing for a fight for a long time. "Good afternoon," the woman said briskly. "I'm Andrea from Hale Retail Ventures. As of today, this location will be transitioning to a new boutique concept."
Hale.
Emma's grip on the hanger in her hand tightened. Of course.
Of course it was them.
Lucas's gaze moved over the store, over Denise, and then landed on her. For a heartbeat, everything else went silent. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi," she managed. Andrea kept talking about rebranding, about new inventory and new marketing strategies, but the words blurred. Emma's pulse thundered in her ears. "Emma?" Denise's elbow nudged her. "You're being addressed." She blinked back to focus. Andrea was looking at her with polite interest. "Mr. Hale has a special proposal for you," Andrea said. "You've been flagged as one of the top performers at this location." "Flagged," Emma repeated, throat dry. "Right." Lucas stepped forward, hands in his pockets like he was trying not to clench them. "We're turning this into a pilot store," he said. "Smaller brand. More personal. I need someone to run it. Or requested you." Requested. Like she was a file he'd pulled from a cabinet. "Why?" she asked, the word out before she could soften it. Something flickered in his eyes. "Because I've seen how you handle customers."
And staff.
"And messes you didn't create." He held her gaze. There was something else there, too. A question he hadn't asked yet. Manager position. Andrea chimed in. Significant raise. Performance bonus. Eventually possible equity, depending on how the concept performs. Equity. Denise echoed, eyes widening. Emma barely heard her. All she could see was Victor's office, the case on the desk, the stacks of bills she'd pushed back. I want to see what you do when no one is holding a suitcase over your head. This wasn't a suitcase. It was a set of keys. She forced herself to breathe. What's the catch? Andrea smiled. You'd report directly to Mr. Hale. Long hours at the start. Full responsibility for staff. But if you're asking if there's some hidden clause, no. We just want to see what you can do.
We.
Emma glanced at Lucas. His jaw ticked.
This is my project, he said.
I can pick anyone. I picked you. The old Emma, the one who ran at the first sign of a trap, wanted to bolt. To say no, to quit, to find another anonymous job where nobody knew her history. But the person she'd been becoming, the one who'd shoved her own money across a desk for Evan, the one who dragged herself back to Victor's office to return what she could, felt something different. Anger. Yes.
Fear.
Definitely. Also something that felt suspiciously like a challenge. If Victor thought she was just another girl to move around a board, he was wrong. If Lucas thought he was the only one who'd been hurt, he was wrong too. Maybe the only way out of this mess wasn't away. Maybe it was through. She lifted her chin. If I do this, she said slowly, I don't want to be a puppet manager. I want to hire staff, set policies, decide what kind of place this is. Lucas's gaze sharpened. You'd have operational control. I'd handle supplier relationships, leases, marketing. We'd be partners. The word landed between them, heavier than the ones about salary and equity.
Partners.
Her heart thudded. Then I want it in writing. A brief, real smile ghosted over his face. There was the man from the coffee shop, just for a second. Of course you do, he said. Good. You should. He looked back at Andrea. Draw up a contract. Manager title, profit share, path to equity. Send it to her to review. Andrea nodded, tapping rapidly on her tablet. Emma didn't say yes yet, but she didn't say no. That, Victor would understand as an answer. The weeks that followed were a blur of dust, paint, and arguments. They stripped the Verve branding from the walls and windows. The new name, Northline, went up in clean letters that made Emma's stomach flutter every time she walked past the glass. There were fights about everything. Lucas wanted sleek fixtures and spotlighted minimalist racks. Emma insisted on a small seating area where tired shoppers or employees could actually sit down. That couch takes up floor space we could use for product, he protested, holding a blueprint. I've spent half my life standing for 8 hours straight, she said. People stay longer when they don't feel like props. We keep the couch. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it.
Fine.
But we're not putting in a TV.
Deal.
They clashed over hiring, too. He suggested candidates with polished resumes and calm voices. She picked people who'd worked 3 jobs at once, who knew what it was like to be on the wrong side of a power imbalance. We're not running a therapy center, he said one night, rubbing his temples after interviews. We're running a store where people talk to people, she shot back. And I want my people to know the difference between a difficult customer and a drowning one. His expression softened. You really think you can tell? I know I can. And then there were the quiet moments when the shop smelled like fresh wood and new fabric, and they were the last 2 people under the soft track lights. Emma would be fussing with a mannequin scarf, and Lucas would be updating numbers on his laptop, sleeves rolled up, tie gone. Their shoulders would touch, or they'd reach for the same hanger. Sorry, he'd say, pulling back a fraction too late. Occupational hazard, she'd murmur. But beneath the banter, there was a constant hum of everything they hadn't said. The unanswered texts. The months of silence. The $10 million she hadn't told him about. Every day she didn't tell him made it harder. Every day she worked beside him made it more necessary. The night before opening, the shop finally looked like something real. Warm lights. A mix of brands that felt intentional, not just expensive, good fabrics, fair trade tags. Mirrors that didn't distort. Emma's couch, with a small stack of magazines and a potted plant that was somehow still alive. Lucas stood in the middle of the floor, hands on his hips, turning slowly. "You did good," he said. She almost corrected. But the truth of it knocked into her chest. She wouldn't have had any of this without him. Without his name. Without his father's money. The guilt she'd been swallowing burned its way back up. "Lucas," she said, "we need to talk." He went still. "That sounds ominous." "It is." She gestured to the couch. For once, he didn't joke. They sat. The store felt suddenly too quiet. "You want to know why I left," she said. His eyes closed briefly. "I've wanted to know that since the night you walked out of my father's apartment." She stared down at her hands, fingers twisting together. "Your dad called me into his study after dinner," she said. "He told me he'd seen people like me ruin his son before. Then he opened a case and showed me $10 million. His whole body jerked. "He what?" "He offered it to me if I walked away from you," she said, the words tasting like rust. No explanation.
No goodbye.
Just take the money and disappear. Silence. The air between them went sharp. "I told him he was disgusting," she went on. "Then I went home. I tried to pretend it didn't happen. But the bills were there, and my mom's meds, and the landlord, and—" "You took it," he said, voice flat. She forced herself to meet his eyes.
"Yes."
"I took it." Something in his face shut down. "I thought," he said slowly, "that you'd just decided I was a toy you were done playing with. That you'd realized you didn't want to deal with my world, and you slipped out the back. But there was a price." "It wasn't like that," she said, hating how desperate she sounded. "I didn't take it to hurt you. I took it because I was tired of watching my mom choose between rent and breathing." "You could have told me," he said. "We could have figured it out together." "You don't get it," she said, anger spiking through the shame. "You are the problem and the solution. Your money is your father, your family, your whole world. I didn't know how to ask for help without feeling like I was confirming every terrible thing he already thought about me. So you confirmed it anyway," he shot back. "Just secretly." The words hit like a slap. She flinched. "I brought it back," she said. "Most of it. I walked into his office and put a bag of money on his desk and told him I couldn't live with it. I used some. I won't lie about that. But I couldn't keep the rest." He stared at her. The muscles in his jaw ticked. "He never told me." "Of course he didn't," she said. "He called it a test. Said he was evaluating my priorities." Something ugly flashed in Lucas's eyes. "Of course he did. And these last few weeks," she added, voice shaking. "The rude customers. The stolen dresses. You showing up owning this place. That's all him too, right?" Lucas hesitated. It was answer enough. "He brought me the footage," he said finally, "from the store. Said, if you're still hung up on that girl, at least watch what she does when you're not around. I saw you clean up after those guys. I saw you pay for that kid out of your own pocket." His voice softened, just a fraction. "I thought maybe I didn't know you as well as I thought. In a good way." He exhaled. He offered to fund a new concept. "I told him I'd only do it if you were in charge." She stared at him. "So, This is a test for both of us. Apparently, he said bitterly, his favorite game. A wave of weariness washed over her. I'm sorry I took the money, she said quietly. I'm not sorry I helped my mom with it. I'd do that part again. But I hate that I let him turn me into exactly what he expected. I hate that I hurt you. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. When he looked at her again, the anger was still there, but something else had joined it. Hurt, yes. Also something like recognition. My whole life, he said slowly, people have smiled at me and said all the right things while calculating how close they can stand to my wallet. You were the first person who looked at me and saw it a problem, an inconvenience. It was infuriating, and it was honest. That's why I fell for you. Her throat tightened. I don't know how to undo what you did, he went on. I don't know how to forgive my father for treating you like a line item in a risk assessment, or me like a child who needs his dates vetted by security. Maybe you don't, she said. Not yet. Maybe you just decide what you're going to do next. He huffed a humorless laugh. My therapist would be very proud of that sentence. You have a therapist? She asked, startled.
Yeah.
He shrugged. World's smallest rebellion. Dad hates it. Despite everything, a weak smile tugged at her mouth. Good. He looked at her for a long moment. Do you still? He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Yes, she said, the word out before she could guard it. I do. I never stopped. That's the worst part. His eyes closed briefly, and when he opened them, they were wet. I do too, he said. That makes this harder, not easier. I know. They sat in silence, the hum of the refrigeration unit in the back the only sound. Tomorrow, he said eventually, my father is coming by for the soft opening. He wants to see his investment in person.
Of course he did.
Emma straightened her shoulders. Then tomorrow, we tell him we're done being experiments. Lucas blinked. You're not afraid of losing all this? Terrified, she said. But I'm more afraid of building my life on a lie. I already tried that. It nearly swallowed me. He studied her, then nodded slowly. Okay, he said.
Partners, then.
In business, and in pissing off my father. She let out a shaky breath. That wasn't in the job description. It is now. Victor Hale arrived exactly on time. Northline buzzed with low-level excitement. Friends of friends, a few influencers, some well-dressed strangers Andrea had invited. Emma moved through the room in one of the new dresses, not designer, but cut well, the fabric soft against her skin in a way clothes had never been growing up. She caught sight of Victor near the entrance. No entourage, just a dark suit, a cool gaze, taking everything in. His eyes landed on her. He inclined his head, an almost polite nod. Ms. Reyes, he said when she approached. The place looks better than I expected. Thank you, she said evenly. The staff did most of the work. And my son did the rest, he said. He's taken this project seriously. That's new. Lucas joined them, slipping to her side, his presence a steady weight.
Dad, he said.
What do you think? I think, Victor said, that when I fund something, it tends to work. Emma's jaw clenched. Enough. This store isn't just your money, she said. It's my work, his work, our decisions, our mistakes. If you want credit, you get to share the responsibility too. Victor's eyebrows rose. Responsibility for what, exactly? Profit.
For people, she said.
For what happens when we hire them, push them, pay them. For not turning every relationship into a stress test. He looked between them, something like irritation and curiosity warring in his eyes. You told him, Victor said to her, realization dawning. About the money. I told him everything, she said. About the case.
About the tests.
About me failing first and trying to fix it after. And I told her, Lucas added, voice low but firm, that if you want any part in my life from here on out, you stop treating the people I care about like they're intruders in your fortress. Victor's gaze sharpened. Careful, son. This fortress paid for your education, your ventures, and this very store you're so proud of. I know, Lucas said, and I'm grateful, but I'm not 12. You don't get to keep buying the right to run my relationships like board meetings. Silence stretched. Emma's heart hammered. This was the breaking point, the place where everything could snap or bend. Victor's jaw worked. For a moment, he looked older, not weaker, just tired, in a way she hadn't seen before. You think love alone shields you from what money does to people? He asked. I've watched marriages, friendships, entire families explode under less pressure than this. I'm not asking you to pretend there's no risk, Lucas said. I'm asking you to admit there's a difference between protecting me and controlling me. And I'm asking, Emma said, stepping in, that if you want me in this family or this company, you talk to me, not around me. No more secret offers. No more surprise evaluations. You don't get to test me without my consent. He looked at her, really looked this time, not like a case study, like a person. You already failed once, he said quietly. You took the money. I know, she said, and I came back, not because of you, because I couldn't stand the person I was becoming. You don't have to approve, but you don't get to define me by the worst choice I ever made. Something in his expression shifted just a degree, a hairline crack. You sound very sure of yourself, he said. I'm not, she admitted. I'm terrified most of the time, but I know who I want to be now. And it's not somebody who takes your tests just to prove I deserve your son. She took a breath. If you can't accept that, I'll walk away. From this store. From your investment.
From all of it.
I won't walk away from him again, but I also won't live like I owe you my soul. Lucas glanced at her, startled. Emma? I mean it, she said, eyes never leaving Victor's. The room hummed around them. Music, laughter, the soft rustle of clothes. Inside their little triangle, the air felt still. You'd give this up? Victor asked. This chance? Yes, she said. If the cost is never being more than your experiment. He studied her for a long, long moment. Then, to her shock, the corner of his mouth twitched. You two are infuriating, he said. Learned from the best, Lucas muttered. Victor exhaled slowly, as if letting out air he'd been holding for years. I am not good at this, he said. At trusting what I didn't personally design. I tested your mother too, you know. He glanced at Lucas. She never forgave me for it. She stayed anyway. I thought that meant I'd won. His gaze returned to Emma. Now I'm not sure what winning even is. Emma swallowed. Maybe it's not winning or losing, she said. Maybe it's deciding when to stop fighting. Another long beat. Finally, Victor nodded once, sharp.
Fine, he said.
No more tests. No more suitcases. The store is yours to run for real. I'll remain an investor. You will send me quarterly reports. I will criticize them, but I won't use this place as a leash. Lucas let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. That's the most you version of a blessing I've ever heard. Victor ignored him, focusing on Emma. As for your relationship, he said, the word clearly unfamiliar in his mouth, I still think you are mismatched in ways that will cost you. But I've seen enough to know you'll face those costs with your eyes open. It wasn't approval. Not really. It was something more valuable. Respect. Thank you, she said quietly. He nodded, then, almost as an afterthought, added, If you insist on making this permanent, I expect to be told before the tabloids. Lucas blinked. Making what? Don't be obtuse, son, Victor said. I assume you're going to marry her. Try not to schedule the wedding during Q4. He turned and drifted into the crowd, leaving them stunned in his wake. Emma stared after him. Did he just? Yeah, Lucas said, dazed. That was his version of, I'm happy for you. Don't ask for a better one. This is advanced level Hale emotional availability. She laughed, the sound bubbling up out of her chest, bright and shaky. You okay? He asked, eyes searching hers. No, she said honestly, but I'm closer than I was. He took her hand, right there amid the racks and customers and Victor's shadow. Emma Reyes, he said softly, will you keep co-running this chaotic, exhausting, infuriating life with me? Is that your proposal? She teased, voice thick. For now, he said. The ring will be more conventional. My father would die if I didn't at least follow some traditions. She squeezed his fingers. Then yes, I will. He grinned, and for the first time since the diner, it was unguarded. Months later, the couch in Northline had a permanent groove where tired shoppers sank gratefully. Evan managed inventory like it was a second language. Denise, now at a different location, occasionally dropped by just to complain about her new staff and brag about Emma's numbers. Emma stood by the front window one evening, watching the city lights, wearing one of the store's jackets over jeans. The ring on her finger was simple. She'd chosen it that way. Behind her, Lucas was talking to a group of investors, gesturing toward a rack of new brands they'd brought in, local designers, sustainable fabrics. The investors nodded, impressed. Victor sat on the couch, of all places, watching. He caught Emma's eye and, in a rare moment of vulnerability, gave a tiny shrug, as if to say, You were right about the couch. She smiled. Her life wasn't a fairy tale. Her father was still gone. Her mother still had bad days. She and Lucas still fought about budgets, about boundaries with Victor, about when to splurge and when to save. But when she locked the doors at night, counted the till, and turned off the lights, she knew one thing for sure. This shop hadn't been handed to her in a suitcase. She had earned it. Scar by scar, choice by choice. And as Lucas flipped the sign to closed and wrapped his arms around her in the dim quiet, she realized something else. She wasn't the girl behind the counter anymore. She was the one who decided what kind of world existed on this side of the glass.